Patty here. I've got some great ideas for adding interest to our pages. You've got all of your supplies, you've decided what journal size you are going to make, and now we're going to start with page 1. We're going to cut 2 pieces of our stencil or dictionary page, whichever is your choice, and we're going to cover up an area on the page that has a rip or tear. Don't glue and then try to take it to the sewing machine and stitch it. This will gum up your needle. Also, when gluing, glue from the center and press out to keep the wrinkles. Trim off all excess edges. Page 2, we're just going to make a page a little bit smaller with a tuck spot. I'm making mine just a folded piece of 8.5 by 11 folded over, and then I'm just making a tuck spot with 1 inch, 1.5 inch tuck spot. You generally need at least 1 inch for a tuck spot. Then we're going to glue across the top and the bottom. And now we have a nice tuck spot. On to page 3. I'm taking a piece of the dictionary page that has a real rough edge, and I'm going to make it stronger by cutting a piece of the fern or stencil, you choose what piece, about 1.5 inch wide. And then I'm going to fold that in half and glue that from the center out onto my dictionary page. Now I'm going to take the 4-inch piece wide of my stencil, and I am going to make another tuck page by folding over about 1 inch onto 1.5 inches onto that, and where the folded edge is will be the outside edge where the tuck will be for a more reinforced edge. We're going to glue across the top and the side and inside the flap, and then we're going to cut off all excess off of our page. Keep that little excess page because you're going to need it for another page for making tabs. I always like to have baby wipes close by because I glue up everything. So here I've got my baby wipes out and cleaning up my area. Now we have our tuck spot there, and we have interest added and paper stronger. Page 4, we're going to take our National Geographic page, and we're going to fold that in half. And we're going to decide which side we want that has more interest. And we're going to take our 28-pound weight dyed paper, and we're just going to fold it over 1/4 inch on each end, and then fold in another 1 inch to make a double tuck spot. Fold it in half, and we're going to glue across top and bottom so that we can have a tuck spot on both sides, and we'll have 2 tuck spots. This actually makes 4 tuck spots when we finish. Make sure it's centered in your page and glue the National Geographic onto your cardstock. Do on both sides. Making sure it's nice and inside on that for it folds over nicely. Cut off any excess. This is a nice smaller page and adds interest. We're just layering and adding interest. On our page 5, we've got another 1.5 inch strip and a 4-inch strip. And we're going to fold the 1.5 inch strip over, and we're going to fold the 4-inch strip in half. And when we put it on our page, we're going to make sure that we see which side we want to show. We're going to cut off our excess before we fold this diagonal line in. Fold that into the center piece, and then we're going to add the extra strengthen onto that tuck spot page because the dictionary pages are so lightweight and weak. Now we're going to glue this onto our 28-pound page. We just want to glue it on the inside piece, not all the way to the edge, because we want to make sure that we have a tuck spot here. When we trim on this, we'll trim this piece off so we have a nice tuck spot all along the edge on this side and a tuck spot on this side. We have to glue top and bottom on this side too of the dictionary page. See how the doily is printed on that page? I didn't want to cover that up with the tuck spot. Page 6, I've got a 3-inch piece, and this is a double-sided printed. When I use the downloadable printable pages, I double-sided the fern or feather page. You can use whichever one you decide to use. I fold it down about 1 inch so you can see both sides of it, and then I'm going to glue across the sides and the bottom to make tuck spots across the bottom of this page on both sides. Also glue that little flap down too. Trim off any excess. And we're on to page 7. Here we're going to fold our paper in half, and if you're sewing it, you might want to use the heavier weight cardstock. If you're just gluing it, you want to slowly put your bead of glue down and keep pushing it up and making gathers using a pin or a needle or toothpick or something, and push that up. Or else you're going to want to take it to the sewing machine and gather and push this up using half of your piece of material came from the kit. Don't sew it too close to the edge or you will make a weak edge. As we go on to page 8, we have 2 of the stencil pages that are the circles. I like using the circles for the tab pages. It adds nice interest, and you can write in circles and you can cut out circles and make peekaboo pages. They are fun. You can also use one of the dyed pages. You can use any of the stencil pages. It's fun for you to decide which page you want to have a tab on it and that you will be able to go to immediately and know right where something is. So we're just going to take one of the pages and fold it in half for our journal size. We're taking a scrap piece that is at least 1 inch by 2 inches. And we're going to glue that tab onto the top part of one of our stencil pages, making sure that you leave off about a 1/2 inch where that is sticking out of the page. Now we're going to do this onto the second page so we can have 2 pages that will have our tabs. We just want to take another piece of the scrap pieces and cut us off about a 1 inch by 2 inch piece, fold it in half, and determine where our first tab is, and then we will add the second tab below it so the tabs aren't lined up. We want them to be off-centered from each other. Make sure you glue that up nicely and have the tab sticking out about a 1/2 inch from the edge of your journal page. Great, we have 2 more pages done. Page 9, we're going to just take some of our scraps and we're going to use those scraps on another piece of the stencil page that we've printed off from our free downloadable page. Now you might want to wait till you get to page 12 so you have some more scraps to do this page, but you've got lots of paper here so you can decide which way you want to do it. I'm just cutting a random size piece and cutting it off in a diagonal and adding a tuck spot to the corner. And then I'm taking another piece in the center and just putting some glue on it, and I'm not even measuring, I'm just kind of going up with it and seeing what size will fit. And then I'm just going to put glue on the journal page on the sides and up around the bottom and put that on, and then I'm going to trim off all the excess, and that will fit nicely as another tuck spot across the bottom. I also want to add a tab to the back of it for my inchy. And so I'm going to take another piece that's a 1 inch by 2 inch piece, and I'm going to fold that in half and glue it, but making sure you leave a little loop so your pin from your inchy can go through it. I'm just going to glue that across the top, making sure that the pin will fit through the tab that I'm making. I don't want to make it too long. It's closer to 1 inch than 2 inches. Glue just the top portion of this, and then glue to the center of our journal page. Now we have a nice place for our inchy to sit. Tuck spot on the front. Another tuck spot. The stenciling is so light you can hardly see it, so you'll be able to journal right over these pages. It's just wonderful. Pages 10 and 11, we're going to take 2 more pages of the stencil pages that we have printed out. You decide if you want them double-sided or not. And we're going to make some fun edges around them by using our decal cutter or fancy scissors, whatever you have. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy something new or different. This is just a fun thing to do to your pages if you've got something like this. I'm using this decal edge all the way down this side to add a fancy edge, lining up the little marks so I know where I have already punched and can just keep going right down the edge of this, making a nice pretty edge. It cuts off about not quite a half of an inch onto this page. Now I think I'll just take my scissors that have the scallop edge and cut the edges on the other side. Use your scalloped edge scissors to make a rounded corner. You go from end to end using the rounded area to cut a nice rounded edge if you don't have a punch. I like to then distress my edges around pages. I usually will do this on every single page of my journal, not just one. And it kind of adds a distressed or ages the pages. And I'm using Victorian Velvet and Worn Lipstick because it has this nice pink hue which matches my beat dyed paper and ties all my pages together. I just go around all the corners and edges, both sides, front and back, first using the lightest color, which is the Victorian Velvet, and then going back with the Worn Lipstick, which is a little bit darker, over the top of it, going in a little circular motion around on the page. Now we've got distressed edges, and we've got inked up pages, tying these all together and adding nice interest. I really like this look. I just decided to cut a little more off this edge and this one to make it a more rounded edge, and then distressing it more than having a sharp squared edge. You can round off all of your pages on this too. We're going on to page 12, and we're going to take our tracing paper and our 110-pound cardstock dyed page, and we're going to make a secret pocket on the side and a glassine bag for the front. This is really an interesting page. The glassine bags add so much texture and sound because they have a feel to them. So we're going to take the 110-pound cardstock, fold it in half, which matches my journal size. We're going to take and cut our tissue paper in half, and then we're going to use 1/2 to start making our glassine bag, and the other half will be for this secret tuck spot. I don't measure, but I will put it by this ruler so you'll be able to see that it ends up being about a 4-inch size bag. I fold one side over and then the other side, leaving a 1/2 inch in the center for a glue line that I can glue down the center, using my bone to make the edges nice and sharp. It's about a 4-inch size bag, plus or minus. You don't have to be exact. If you're making a journal that is the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper folded in half, then you don't want it to be bigger than a 4 1/4 inch size. Folding the bottom up a 1/2 inch and cutting out that excess paper on your glassine bag and trimming the edges to a little diagonal, and then we're going to glue that, and that makes the bottom edge. Across the top, you can use your fancy cut scissors and just cut straight across to make a nice straight fancy edge, or you can cut off another of the 1/2 inch and do what you did on the bottom of it, just a 1/2 inch down, cut that out on one side, and then trim the other side with some diagonal edges. Now that's ready to glue onto our page. And if you only glue it around the sides and the bottom, then you have a tuck spot both the front and the back, making 2 more tuck spots. Because that's what this journal is all about, is interesting pages and lots of tuck spots to add extra journaling cards and notes and tags. For the inside, we're going to take our other piece of tracing paper and fold it in half. And then we're going to measure it onto our cardstock and go down a 1/2 inch smaller and a 1/2 inch where it's not as the height of it and the width of it. And we're going to use our ruler and make a straight line because I can't cut free-handedly very well. So we'll cut that piece out. And then you want to make sure that you erase your cut lines there if you didn't go on the right side and you've got some left over. Erase those lines that you've drawn on your cardstock because you don't want that to see through. The tracing paper has been dyed with the beet dye, but it will show through anything. Now if you're going to glue it, you're going to glue it around those 2 edges. And if you're going to sew it, then you can sew it on those edges and add more sewing across the page. I've sewn all the way up on that page just to add some more interest to it. Cut off any excess along there. I need my paper trimmer to make a straight line here because there's nothing on the back of it to be able to measure it to. So I'm just cutting a straight line with my paper cutter and making it the same size as my journal page. Now we've got this secret little tuck spot that you can kind of see through it, and it just has this great sound and texture to it. This is one of my favorite pages. We're going to use on our page 13 the belly band from your kit and the 110-pound cardstock. I always use the 110-pound cardstock if I'm going to use the sewing machine. It just makes it a little stronger. So we take our belly band and we're just going to sew across the top and the bottom, deciding which side we want up and which side is going to be on the bottom. I've added extra sewing all the way across on the page, and now we have this nice belly band for our envelope or whatever we're going to put underneath it. On to page 14. I've decided to use the one that has the most doily print on it, and we're going to take one of the dyed doilies and fold it in half. Only glue where there's actual material in the center, the paper of the doily, and glue that right on to the side of the page. So now we have a tuck spot both front and back. Our other doily we're going to take and fold it in half, and then we're going to fold it in fours, and then we're going to glue it on the corner of the page, and now we'll have a double tuck spot both front and back the way we're going to glue this on. So we have a tuck spot there, and then another one on the inside. Just gluing on the sides and the middle and the bottom. Butting it right up against the edge of our journal page. Because we don't want to cut this. We want to just make sure it's butted right up against it. Now we have double tuck spots on both sides of these pages with these doilies. And plus we have our doilies that are embedded into the cardstock that has been dyed. Now you're going to want to take all 14 pages and decide how you want to make your two signatures. Put one of the smaller pages in one of the signatures and one of the smaller pages in the other signatures. I kind of like to have them separated, and same if you're using the circle pages, one on one signature and the other one in the other signature. Putting together the pages is fun and interesting to do because you get to decide how you want your ephemera to fit inside of this and how you're going to actually use it as a journal. This kit is made where all the pages and everything has got the same theme running through it, the same dyed papers, the material, the rose gold, the pinks and the burgundies. It's all going to tie together when we start adding our ephemera and putting these signatures together into our journal cover. Each page can be changed, altered, built up, stripped back, gessoed, and added to as much as you like, depending on what tools or supplies you have. No two kits will be the same because you can make it your own and your own style. The fun of creating journals is to explore and discover paper, textile, layering, and pasting techniques while we tear, cut, stamp, stencil, reconstruct, and stitch our way to a new mixed media artwork on every page. Pockets and tuck spots are places to stash treasures. That's the theme for this journal. Next video will be a flip through of the whole journal, and you'll see the finished kit all put together with this. Enjoy your kit, and I would love to see what you come up with. Thank you.